I had spent 18 nights alone in Copper Ridge Lookout before the radio spoke on a channel that did not exist. The tower stood on a bald granite shoulder in western Montana, 40 feet above the treetops and almost 16 miles from the nearest paved road. During daylight, the isolation felt clean. I watched cloud shadows cross the Bitterroot Mountains, logged smoke reports, and read paperback mysteries between weather checks. At night, the windows became black mirrors. The stairs groaned in the wind, moths battered themselves against the glass, and the entire forest seemed to wait below me. My name is Claire Danner. I was 28 that summer, between teaching jobs and desperate to prove I could handle a season in a fire tower. My supervisor, Hank Bell, had driven me up in June, shown me the propane stove, the emergency water, the lightning stool, and the old VHF radio bolted beneath the desk. Channel 1 is dispatch, he said. 2 is crew traffic. 3 is weather. Don't bother with 4. Why? Old repeater frequency. East Basin used it before the tower burned. East Basin Lookout had been destroyed in the 2003 Black Elk fire. The Forest Service never rebuilt it. From Copper Ridge, I could see the bare knob where it had stood, 9 miles northwest, pale against the darker timber. For more than 2 weeks, Channel 4 produced nothing but static. Then, at 1:17 on a Tuesday morning, a man whispered through it. "Copper Ridge, put out your lamp." I was writing the midnight weather numbers. My pen stopped above the logbook. The voice came again, weak but unmistakable. "He can see you when the lamp is on." I stared at the radio. The selector knob still pointed to Channel 3. "Dispatch, this is Copper Ridge," I said. "Did someone just call me?" Static answered. I tried again. No response. That happened sometimes when temperature shifts bent the signal, so I reached for the satellite messenger. Before I touched it, the radio crackled. "Don't stand by the west window." This time I obeyed without thinking. I stepped back. Something flashed in the trees below. It was not lightning. The sky was clear, crowded with stars. The flash came from the service road, where a white point appeared, vanished, then appeared farther uphill. Someone was walking toward the tower with a flashlight. Visitors occasionally climbed up during the day. Nobody came at 1 in the morning. The gate 6 miles below was locked, and the warning signs were hard to miss. I killed the lamp. Darkness folded over the cabin. "Copper Ridge to dispatch," I said, keeping low. Unknown person approaching on the South Service Road. This time a woman answered immediately. "Copy, Copper Ridge." Probably a trail crew member. "Exit the tower and meet them at ground level." Relief lasted less than a second. Dispatch always addressed me as Lookout 6. More importantly, no trail crew was scheduled within 30 miles. "Identify yourself," I said. The woman repeated the instruction in exactly the same tone. "Exit the tower and meet them at ground level." The dead channel snapped alive beneath her voice. "That isn't dispatch," the man whispered. I locked the trapdoor at the top of the stairs and slid the steel storm pin through its brackets. My hands moved automatically through the safety routine Hank had drilled into me. Lock. Radio. Messenger. Bear spray. Flare pistol. The flashlight below went dark. That was worse than watching it move. Somewhere below the windows, a person now knew the exact ground he was crossing while I had only sound and imagination. I switched on my headlamp beneath the desk, shielding it with my hand, and searched the cabin for anything useful. The emergency box held 2 road flares, a first aid kit, and a coil of climbing rope. Beneath it, I found logbooks left by previous lookouts. Most entries were weather, lightning strikes, and complaints about mice. In the final book from the season before mine, someone named Rachel had underlined one sentence twice. July 12th, 12:40 a.m. light at South Gate. Male voice on disabled frequency. Hank says interference. Tonight was July 12th. A sharp metallic snap rose from the road. The gate chain. I lifted the binoculars just high enough to see through the south window. The flashlight remained off, but clouds of pale road dust showed where boots disturbed the surface. A shadow moved between the switchbacks. Whoever climbed toward me had covered the light and cut the gate in darkness. The false dispatcher called again. Fire reported northeast of your position. Evacuate by the North Trail immediately. There was no North Trail. A steep game path dropped that way into a ravine, but only someone studying an old map would mistake it for an evacuation route. I keyed the microphone. Copy. Taking North Trail. Then I placed the radio on the floor with a book holding the transmit button down. If the person below was listening, all he would hear was the cabin creaking and my boots moving toward the north side. I crossed in my socks instead. The satellite messenger finally changed from pending to sent. A second status appeared beneath it. Response received. The message itself would not load. I knew help had heard me, but I did not know how far away it was. The dead channel voice whispered, "He left something on the stairs." I looked through a crack in the floorboards. A dark bundle rested on the landing below the trapdoor. 2 wires ran from it around a support beam. Later, deputies identified it as a battery-powered hunting alarm. If I had opened the trapdoor, a siren would have sounded in my face while a flash cartridge blinded me. Dale did not merely want me outside. He had planned exactly how fear would move me. At the time, I only knew that every obvious escape had become part of someone else's design. I sent an SOS through the satellite unit with a short message. Person at tower. Radio compromised. The device showed the message as pending. Mountains sometimes delayed transmission for several minutes. That night, every second felt stolen. A boot touched the lowest stair. The tower carried the sound upward. Metal gave a soft, hollow ping. Then another. The steps were being taken slowly, with long pauses between them. The false dispatcher returned. "Claire, open the trapdoor. Ranger Bell is outside." I had never given my name over the radio that night. I crawled to the Osborne fire finder in the center of the room. Its circular map table had a sighting arm and a polished metal rim. In daylight, it helped me take bearings on smoke. In the dark, the glass reflected the faint red glow of the radio panel. The dead channel voice spoke again. "He climbs under the west railing." I looked toward the west windows. Nothing moved on the catwalk. Then I looked down at the fire finder. In its reflection, a face rose slowly above the sill behind me. He had not used the stairs all the way up. He had climbed the tower braces and pulled himself beneath the catwalk railing, avoiding the trapdoor. He wore a canvas hood the color of dead grass. Only his eyes showed. I turned as he drove his shoulder into the west window. The old safety glass bowed but held. He hit it again. A white fracture jumped across the pane. I fired the flare pistol through the ceiling vent. The red flare burst above the tower, flooding the clearing with harsh light. For one clean instant I saw everything. A dark pickup hidden beneath camouflage netting, a second radio wired to a battery on the catwalk, and the man raising a short-handled axe. The emergency siren switch was beside the door. I slammed it down. The tower screamed. The man flinched, but the axe came through the window. Glass showered across the floor. He reached through, caught my jacket, and pulled me hard enough to knock my breath away. I emptied the bear spray into the broken opening. He released me with a howl. Blinded, he staggered along the narrow catwalk, one hand clawing at his hood. I grabbed the long aluminum pole used to close storm shutters and shoved it through the railing in front of his legs. His shin struck it. His weight carried him over. He caught the lower support beam instead of falling to the ground. The axe disappeared into the trees. For several seconds he hung there, coughing and kicking, his body 20 feet below the cabin and 20 feet above the rocks. "Help me," he gasped. The siren made his voice sound very far away. I pulled the pole back. I did not help him, but I did not let him fall. I stayed behind the locked trapdoor with the flare pistol aimed at the broken window until distant headlights appeared on the ridge. Hank arrived with 2 sheriff's deputies at 3:06. My SOS had gone through at 1:24. They found the man clinging to the brace with a dislocated shoulder and 1 broken ankle. His name was Dale Keswick. He had worked seasonal trail maintenance until he was fired for stealing fuel and equipment. In his truck, deputies found radios, bolt cutters, camouflage netting, and property taken from campsites across 3 counties. They also found printed photographs of Copper Ridge shot through a telephoto lens. Some showed me cooking. Some showed me sleeping. The oldest photographs were not of me. They showed Rachel, the lookout who had written in the logbook, and a college student named Becca Lowell who worked the tower 2 summers earlier. Both had reported late-night radio interference. Neither had ever seen Dale's face. Becca quit halfway through her season after waking to find every stair beneath the tower marked with white chalk. Detectives searched a hunting cabin leased under Dale's brother's name. Inside were packs and identification cards belonging to missing campers. One was a 20-year-old man last seen hiking alone near East Basin. Dale never confessed to hurting him, and no body was found, but the discovery changed the charges from attempted burglary to a much larger investigation. Rachel called me after the story appeared in the newspaper. She said the voice on Channel 4 had warned her too, but she had been ashamed to tell anyone after Hank blamed atmospheric skip. Did he say anything about the west side? I asked. She became quiet. He told me the old fire still knew the way up. Dale had monitored Forest Service traffic for weeks. The female dispatcher's voice had been assembled from recorded transmissions and played from his second radio. He had expected me to come down the stairs, where the trees would hide whatever he planned to do. That explained almost everything. It did not explain the other voice. The deputies assumed Dale had used 2 recordings to frighten me. Dale denied it. Hank checked the equipment and found that the old Channel 4 crystal had been removed years earlier. The knob could point to 4, but the radio could neither send nor receive there. 3 days later, while replacing the broken window, Hank brought me a thin folder from the district archive. Inside was a photograph of a young man standing beside East Basin Lookout in 2003. His name was Owen Hale. He had remained at his post during the Black Elk fire to relay wind changes to an engine crew trapped below the ridge. The crew escaped. Owen did not. On the back of the photograph, someone had written his last recorded transmission. Keep west. The fire climbs under the west side. I finished the season at Copper Ridge. People have asked why I stayed. The truth is that I was less afraid after that night. The forest had contained someone who wanted to hurt me, but it had also contained a voice that refused to let it happen. On my final morning, I left a note beneath the radio for the next lookout. Channel 1 is dispatch. 2 is crew traffic. 3 is weather. If a man speaks on 4, listen carefully. I signed my name, locked the cabin, and hiked down in daylight. Halfway to the gate, the handheld radio in my pack crackled once. Then a man I had never met said, "Clear trail, Claire." Story 2. The first call from Unit 6 became 11 minutes after I watched the owner seal it with a steel plate. I worked the overnight desk at Lakefront Secure Storage on the south side of Chicago. The job paid $2 more an hour than the grocery store, and most nights I had almost nothing to do. The building was a converted printing warehouse with 6 floors, no windows above the lobby, and hallways that swallowed sound. Customers used access codes until 10. After that, I was alone behind bullet-resistant glass with a bank of security monitors and a radio linked to a private patrol company. Unit 6B was not a normal storage locker. It sat at the end of the 6th floor behind a fire door, larger than the others and built into what had once been a freight elevator shaft. Nobody rented it. My boss, Mr. Halpern, kept old records there. On a wet Thursday in November, he asked me to follow him upstairs before my shift. The unit's roll-up door stood open. There were no records inside, only an unplugged desk phone in the middle of the concrete floor. "Where are the boxes?" I asked. "Disposed of." He would not look at the phone. 2 maintenance men lowered a gray steel plate over the doorway. They drove anchors into the wall, welded the edges, and painted a red X across the center. Mr. Halpern watched until they finished. "Nobody opens this," he told me. "If an alarm trips up here, call me before you call anyone else." That was strange enough to stick with me. But Mr. Halpern was strange in ordinary ways. He counted paper clips, unplugged the lobby coffee maker between cups, and once accused a customer of stealing a pen that was behind his ear. By 11:30, everyone had left. Rain ran down the glass entrance doors. I settled behind the desk, opened my laptop, and tried to finish an accounting assignment. At 11:41, line 6 lit up on the old switchboard. The label beside it read 6B. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Lakefront Secure. This is Marcus. For a moment, I heard only a faint electrical hum. Then a woman whispered. He put the wall back. I sat straighter. Who is this? Please don't tell him I called. The line went dead. I checked the monitors. The 6th floor camera showed an empty corridor and the red X at the far end. The plate looked exactly as it had when I left. I called Mr. Halpern. He answered on the first ring, wide awake. Did the alarm trip? He asked. No. The phone in 6B rang the desk. Silence. Impossible, he said at last. That line was cut. I spoke to a woman. You heard crosstalk. Old building. Do not go upstairs. He hung up. His last sentence guaranteed that I would spend the next hour staring at the 6th floor monitor. At 12:26, the fire door beside 6B opened 3 inches. No one came through it. The door remained open just long enough for the black gap behind it to show. Then it closed softly. I picked up the radio and called the patrol company. The dispatcher said their nearest car was 20 minutes away. While I waited, I cycled through the other cameras. Floor 5 was empty. Floor 4 was empty. On floor 3, a cart rolled slowly across the hallway by itself. It stopped beneath the camera. A hand reached up from below the frame and turned the lens toward the ceiling. The desk phone rang again. He knows you saw, the woman said. Where are you? Between the rooms. Are you trapped? She began to cry, but the sound was wrong. It repeated in a perfect rhythm, the same small gasp every 3 seconds. I looked at the switchboard. Line 6 was dark. The voice was coming through my handset, but no line showed active. Then a man spoke behind her. Come find the door, Marcus. The lobby lights went out. Emergency strips glowed red along the floor. My monitor bank switched to backup power, showing 5 blank feeds and 1 view from the freight elevator. Its interior camera captured a man standing inches from the closed doors. He wore a plastic rain poncho. His head was lowered, hiding his face. The floor indicator above the lobby desk began to descend. 6, 5, 4. I locked the inner office, grabbed the heavy flashlight, and called 911 from my cell. The dispatcher kept me talking while she sent officers. The elevator passed floor 3, then floor 2. At 1, the doors opened. The elevator was empty. A wet poncho lay on the floor. The police arrived 7 minutes later. They searched the lobby, stairwells, elevator, and every accessible hall. They found no intruder. The 3rd floor camera had been twisted upward, but there were no useful prints. The patrol officer finally arrived as the police were leaving and suggested the hand might have belonged to a customer who stayed past closing. Then where did he go? I asked. Nobody answered. The officers offered to wait until my relief arrived, but Mr. Halpern told them over the phone that another employee was 10 minutes away. Nobody came. By 4 o'clock, the rain had strengthened. Trains had started rattling along the elevated tracks, and I was still alone. I locked myself behind the desk and reviewed the local recorder. The footage revealed gaps I had not noticed during the search. At 11:39, every camera skipped forward exactly 12 seconds. At 12:25, the 6th floor hall lost 17 seconds. The timestamps remained smooth, as if the missing moments had been cut before they were recorded. An access log showed a master credential entering the building at 11:38. The credential name was H01. Mr. Halpern had told me his code was disabled whenever he was off-site. I printed the log and placed it in my backpack. As I bent beneath the counter, I noticed a current of cold air against my face. It came from the electrical outlet beside my chair. Fine gray dust had gathered along its lower edge, and in the dust was the curved mark of a fingertip pushed from inside the wall. I shined my flashlight through the cable opening. Something reflected several feet back, and I fell away from the desk. The reflection vanished. A soft scraping traveled behind the lobby wall toward the service stairs. The desk phone rang. The woman said, "He heard you print it." This time the voice did not repeat. Her breathing changed. I heard the small, wet sound of someone swallowing fear. "Elena?" I asked, although I did not know the name yet. She whispered, "Not yet." Then line 6 went dark. Mr. Halpern came in before dawn. He looked furious, not frightened. He ordered me to erase the security footage because, he said, recording people inside rented areas violated company policy. I refused. He reached across the desk for the recorder key. Rain covered his coat, but his shoes were dry. A gray streak marked one sleeve, the same dust packed inside the wall. I realized he had not just arrived. He had entered before midnight, moved through the hidden passages, and then walked outside so the front camera would show him coming to work. I slid my backpack behind my legs. The printed access log was inside it. "Where's my relief?" I asked. "Called off. You said he was 10 minutes away." I said what the police needed to hear. That was when line 6 lit again. We both stared at it. I put the call on speaker. The woman said, "Ask him about Elena Ruiz." Mr. Halpern went gray. He pulled the phone cord from the wall. The speaker continued to hiss. Then the woman repeated the name. Elena Ruiz had rented a third-floor unit 4 years earlier. Mr. Halpern claimed she stopped paying and abandoned her belongings. Her family had filed a missing person report, but detectives found no sign that she had ever visited the facility on the night she vanished. I knew none of that yet. I only knew my boss was backing away from a disconnected phone. "What did you do?" I asked. He ran. He did not run toward the front doors. He used his master key on the service stairwell and headed up. I followed far enough to keep hearing him, while the 911 dispatcher stayed on my cell. On the 3rd floor, he left the stairwell and disappeared between 2 rows of lockers. A metal door slammed somewhere ahead. By the time police returned, Mr. Halpern was gone. The building plans gave us the answer. When the warehouse became a storage facility, contractors had constructed new walls several feet inside the old brick shell. The gap carried pipes and electrical lines around all 6 floors. It was wide enough for a person to move through. Hidden access panels opened behind certain units. Police removed the steel plate from 6B. The room beyond was still empty, except for the desk phone. But when an officer lifted the receiver, he heard breathing. They traced the cord into a hole drilled through the rear wall. Behind it was a narrow living space filled with canned food, bottled water, keys, hard drives, and dozens of small monitors. Cameras had been installed inside vents across the facility. One showed my desk. Another showed the employee restroom. A third showed the inside of Unit 318, where Elena Ruiz had stored furniture while leaving an abusive boyfriend. There was also a portable soundboard connected to the phone system. The crying woman and the invitation to find the door had been recordings. Mr. Halpern had used them to scare me upstairs. While I watched 6B, he planned to enter the lobby through the wall, erase the footage, and recover the recorder. He had been living inside his own building for years, watching customers and stealing anything he believed they would not report. But the police did not find him in the walls. They found him in the freight elevator pit at noon. He was alive with 2 shattered legs. He claimed someone had chased him down the service passage. He said a woman kept whispering behind him, no matter how fast he crawled. Detectives recovered Elena's necklace and driver's license from his hidden room. He eventually confessed that he had confronted her about discovering a camera in Unit 318. During the struggle, she fell from the open freight platform. He concealed her body inside the abandoned shaft, then renovated the space into 6B and kept her name out of the records. Elena's sister attended every day of the trial. After sentencing, she asked to hear the voicemail. We sat together in a courthouse conference room while Elena's warning played from my phone. Her sister did not ask how it was possible. She only asked to hear it twice. The second time, she closed her eyes and said, "That's how Elena sounded when she had already made up her mind to help somebody." For the first time since that night, the message sounded less frightening than brave. The confession put him in prison. The building was condemned. I finished my degree and found a daytime job with an insurance company where every wall reached the ceiling. Months later, the state released my belongings from evidence. My laptop, coat, textbooks, and the cell phone I had used to call 911 came back in a cardboard box. There was one voicemail on the phone, timestamped 12:03 that night. It had arrived while I was speaking to the recorded voice on the desk line. The caller did not cry. She sounded exhausted but calm. "Marcus," she said, "he's coming through the third-floor panel. Don't let him take the recorder." That warning had never played through the desk phone. It had not come from Mr. Halpern's soundboard. The police traced the number for me. It belonged to Elena Ruiz. Her service had been disconnected for years before she called. Story 3. At 2:12 in the morning, a ferry that had been missing for 37 years came out of the fog and asked me to lower the gate. I was the night attendant at the Northport Terminal on the coast of Maine. In summer, the place stayed crowded with tourists, coolers, bicycles, and families heading to Bellwether Island. In January, it felt abandoned. The last scheduled boat left at 8:40. After that, I completed the cash report, checked the fuel cabinet, and waited for the freight captain to arrive before dawn. The night this happened, freezing fog had settled across Penobscot Bay. I could not see the end of the pier from the ticket office. The weather station showed 23 degrees, no wind, visibility less than 50 yards. The harbor bells sounded dull and close, as if the water had moved nearer to the building. My name is Eli Granger. I was 34 and had worked around boats since high school. Fog could distort distance and turn small noises into enormous ones. I knew that. I also knew the service was suspended until visibility improved. So when I heard a ferry horn beyond the breakwater, I assumed Captain Ross had ignored the closure. I called him on the marine radio. "Northport to Island Runner. Are you approaching?" No reply. The horn sounded again, one long blast and two short. That was not our arrival signal. The dock camera showed only gray static at first. Then two pale lights appeared in the fog. A bow slid between them, black with water. The boat moved without an engine sound. No wake touched the pilings. Its name emerged one letter at a time beneath the wheelhouse. Mercy Bell. I had heard the name, but I could not remember where. The ferry stopped beside Slip 2 with perfect precision. Its upper deck lights glowed yellow behind salt-streaked windows. Figures stood inside, shoulder to shoulder. None of them moved toward the exit. My desk phone rang. "Northport Terminal," I answered. A man spoke over the crackle of an old connection. "Lower your vehicle gate. We have one passenger outstanding. Identify your vessel." "Mercy Bell. You're not on my schedule. The child is on shore." The line disconnected. I locked the office door and called the Coast Guard station in Rockland. Petty Officer Ames listened while I described the vessel. He asked me to repeat the name. "Stay inside," he said. "Do not step onto the pier." "Do you know the boat?" "I'm looking into it. A crew is launching." He sounded careful, which frightened me more than disbelief would have. A bell chimed in the passenger lobby. The lobby had been empty 10 seconds earlier. Now a little girl stood beside the ticket counter. She was perhaps 7, wearing pajama pants, one winter boot, and a red coat zipped crookedly over a t-shirt. Her dark hair was wet. Blood marked the side of her forehead. I opened the inner office door and pulled her inside. "Where did you come from?" She pointed toward the parking lot. "Our car went down." "Down where?" "The road ended." I grabbed a blanket from the emergency cabinet and wrapped it around her. Her name was Molly Vance. Her parents had been driving from Bangor to visit her aunt on Bellwether. In the fog, her father had turned where he thought the terminal entrance was. Molly remembered water breaking the windows. Her mother pushed her out through the rear hatch and told her to follow the lights. Her hands were cut, and one foot had gone blue with cold. I cleaned the gash on her forehead while she told the story in short pieces. The car had rolled after entering the water. Her father could not release his seat belt. Her mother found the hatch lever, pushed Molly toward a green light above the surface, and gave her one instruction. "Do not come back, even if you hear us." "Did you hear them?" I asked. Molly nodded. "On the dock. Dad called my name." The station map showed an abandoned boat ramp north of the active terminal. A service road ended there without a barrier. In heavy fog, its reflective markers could be mistaken for the passenger entrance. I gave the location to 911, but the first fire engine had stopped behind a jackknifed salt truck 2 miles away. The harbor rescue boat was launching blind. I found dry socks and a terminal sweatshirt in the lost and found bin. As Molly changed behind the office partition, the public address system chimed. "Molly Vance," a male voice announced. "Your party is ready to board." She froze. The announcement repeated. It used the flat, courteous voice of a person reading from a schedule. "Molly Vance. Final boarding call." I disconnected the microphone from the wall. The speakers kept talking. Molly came around the partition and took my hand. On her wrist was a paper ferry band soaked nearly transparent. Her aunt had mailed it with the island tickets. 3 names were printed on it: Daniel Vance, Laura Vance, and Molly Vance. As I watched, black water spread through the ink of her parents' names. Molly's remained red. I called 911, then the harbor master. Rescue crews began heading toward us, but black ice and fog slowed everyone. The ferry horn sounded again. Molly looked at the security monitor and whispered, "That's my mom's boat." On the screen, a woman had appeared at the end of the pier. She wore a soaked white sweater. Her face was colorless, her hair pasted across her cheeks. A man stood beside her with one arm bent at an impossible angle. They faced the office without moving. Molly ran to the glass. "Mom!" The woman lifted one hand. Then she shook her head. Not a greeting, a warning. Behind the couple, the ferry's passenger gate folded down. A deckhand stepped onto the pier. His uniform belonged to another era. Dark wool coat, flat cap, brass buttons green with corrosion. Water streamed from his sleeves. He walked toward us. I pulled Molly away from the window and locked the lobby doors. The deckhand stopped outside. His face looked swollen and soft, like skin left too long in a bath. He tapped one brass token against the glass. "Passage paid," he said. His voice came through clearly despite the closed doors. "She isn't going anywhere," I told him. "Manifest must balance." The printer behind the ticket counter started by itself. It was an old impact printer we kept for backup. Paper crawled from it with a grinding sound. Across the top appeared a date, January 16th, 1989. Beneath it were 43 names. The final line was blank. As I watched, letters struck the paper. Molly Vance, child, Northport. The lights aboard the ferry brightened. More passengers appeared at its windows. Some wore winter coats. Others wore summer clothes, hospital gowns, work uniforms, or life jackets from different decades. They did not belong to one accident. Whatever had entered the harbor had collected people for a long time. The terminal turnstiles began rotating by themselves. Each click admitted no visible traveler, yet wet impressions formed on the lobby floor. Bare feet, dress shoes, the small parallel tracks of a wheelchair. The marks all led toward the passenger gate. Molly's name printed a second time, then a third. The paper jammed, but the printer continued hammering the same letters against one place until it tore through the page. Outside, her mother placed both hands on the ferry railing. She looked not at Molly, but at the deckhand. For the first time, her expression changed from grief to anger. The deckhand turned toward her. The other passengers turned with him. Molly's father stepped between the deckhand and his wife. Every light on the boat flickered, and the hull struck the pier hard enough to shake the terminal. The dead were not calmly waiting. They were holding something back. The deckhand tapped the glass again. Cracks spread from the token. I took Molly into the maintenance office and shoved a cabinet against the door. The room had no exterior windows, but a service passage led to the hydraulic controls for the passenger ramp. If the deckhand got inside, we could retreat there and exit through the generator shed. The lobby glass broke. Not inward. Every piece fell straight down, as if the window had simply released it. Wet footsteps crossed the tile. Molly pressed her face into my coat. My mom said I'm supposed to stay. Then that's what we're doing. The maintenance door bowed under one slow impact. I moved the cabinet, pulled Molly into the service passage, and locked the door behind us. The narrow corridor smelled of diesel and rust. Pipes shook overhead. We hurried toward the ramp controls while the deckhand's steps followed without urgency. At the control panel, 3 green lights showed the Mercy Bell connected to shore power, ramp, and locking pin. None of those systems should have recognized an unknown vessel. I hit raise. The ramp motor groaned. Through a small inspection window, I saw the metal bridge begin to lift between the pier and the ferry. The deckhand appeared on our side of it. He put both hands beneath the rising ramp and held it down. The hydraulic motor screamed. The pressure gauge climbed into the red. He turned his ruined face toward the inspection window and smiled. Behind him, Molly's parents stood at the ferry gate. Her father held her mother upright. The mother looked at me, then pointed above my head. An emergency release lever hung from the ceiling. I understood. Raising the ramp would not break the connection. Dropping it would. I yanked the lever. The locking pin shot free with a sound like a rifle. The ramp fell 6 inches. The deckhand lost his grip and pitched forward. I grabbed the dock hook from the wall, thrust it through the inspection slot, and caught the back of his coat. For a moment, I held him above the black water. His head rotated farther than a living neck could turn. "One passenger," he said. The cloth tore. He dropped between the pier and the boat without a splash. The Mercy Bell began to move backward. Molly's mother lifted her hand again. This time it was a goodbye. Molly placed her palm against the glass while the 2 yellow lights faded into the fog. The last thing I saw was the ferry's cabin. Every passenger had turned to look at us. Water reached their chests inside the sealed room. Then the lights went out. The Coast Guard reached Northport 20 minutes later. Divers found the Van Cess SUV beyond the old launch ramp, upside down in 30 feet of water. Molly's parents were still strapped into the front seats. The rear hatch stood open. Molly survived with a concussion and mild hypothermia. Her aunt arrived by noon and refused to leave her side. Petty Officer Ames eventually told me about the Mercy Bell. The ferry had sunk during a sudden squall in 1989. 43 people died. The official investigation concluded that an unsecured vehicle shifted, causing the vessel to list and flood. One body was never recovered, deckhand Silas Wren, the man responsible for checking the locking chains. The old manifest contained 42 completed names and 1 blank line, where an unidentified child had been counted twice during boarding. 43 people died, but the paperwork listed 44. According to Harbor Stories, the Mercy Bell returned in heavy fog searching for someone to correct the number. The printer paper disappeared from the evidence room. The broken lobby glass showed no blood, prints, or salt water. Our cameras recorded Molly entering alone. They did not record a ferry, her parents, or the deckhand. They did record me operating the ramp controls. For 11 seconds, while I fought with something outside the inspection slot, my body leaned forward as if another person's full weight hung from the dock hook. I still work mornings at Northport. Molly sends me a card every January. She is 15 now and says she remembers very little about the crash. But she remembers her mother at the ferry gate. She remembers the warning. And whenever fog closes the bay, I check the vehicle barrier twice before I leave. Some crossings are meant for the dead. The kindest thing they can do is keep the gate closed behind them. Story 4. Our motel had only 1 floor, but at 12:38 a.m., a guest called the desk from room 214. The Desert Star sat off Interstate 8 outside Yuma, Arizona, a horseshoe of faded rooms around an empty swimming pool. Truckers used it when the rest stops filled. Construction crews rented by the week. Everybody else kept driving. I was 25 and taking online nursing classes while working the night desk. My manager, Wade Pritchard, lived 40 minutes away and rarely answered after midnight. Most shifts passed beneath the buzz of a vending machine and a television mounted in the corner with the sound off. The property had 30 rooms, numbered 101 through 130. The number 214 did not exist on our key rack, map, or reservation system. That night, a dust storm had shut down part of the interstate. Wind pushed sand beneath the lobby door. The vacancy sign blinked red through the haze, and every few minutes something scraped across the parking lot. At 12:20, an elderly man came in. He wore a tan suit, narrow tie, and polished shoes without a grain of sand on them. His silver hair had been combed straight back. He placed a leather suitcase beside the counter and asked if I had a room for one night. "I have 126, I said. "It faces away from the highway. I always stay in 214. I smiled because I thought he was joking. "We don't have a 214. He looked past me toward the locked office behind the desk. "You will tonight." Before I could ask what that meant, the lights flickered. The lobby went dark for perhaps 2 seconds. When the power returned, the man was gone. His suitcase remained. I checked the front door. Still locked from the inside. Sand had piled against the threshold without a footprint through it. I told myself he had stepped into the restroom while the lights were out. The restroom was empty. So was the breakfast room. I searched the counter for the registration card, but he had never filled one out. The suitcase was too heavy to lift. A brass tag on the handle read Arthur Bell, proprietor. At 12:38, the desk phone rang. The display showed 214. "Front desk," I said. The old man's voice answered. "A woman will arrive in 12 minutes. Do not give her a room." "Where are you calling from?" "There is a key beneath the drawer." "Sir, what room are you in?" 12 minutes, Nina." The call ended. I had not told him my name. I pulled open the shallow drawer beneath the register. Taped to its underside was a brass key. Its diamond-shaped tag was stamped 214. The key had worn a dark outline into the wood, which meant it had been there for years. I searched the office while waiting for Wade and found a motel ledger behind the breaker panel. Its pages ended in 1976. Unlike our current property map, the old cover showed a 2-story building named Bell's Desert Lodge. Room 214 appeared on almost every page. Arthur Bell occupied it permanently. Notes beside his name recorded deliveries, long-distance calls, and a weekly order from a Yuma pharmacy. The final entry was dated October 9th. 2 words had been written in red ink, and "Oh, wake up." The wall above the safe held framed photographs of the motel through the years. I took them down one at a time. Behind the newest picture was a smaller black and white photograph of a man cutting a ribbon in front of a 2-story motor lodge. He wore a tan suit and a narrow tie. Arthur Bell. Someone had scratched across the glass where his face should have been. The security monitor flickered. For an instant, the camera above room 114 showed a 2nd-story balcony where the roof should have been. A man in a tan suit stood at the railing. Then static rolled across the image, and the normal flat roof returned. I called Wade. He sounded irritated until I mentioned Arthur Bell. "Where did you hear that name?" "He left a suitcase." Wade's breathing changed. "Lock the office." "I'm coming." "Who is he?" But Wade had already hung up. At exactly 12:50, headlights entered the parking lot. A black sedan stopped beneath the vacancy sign. A woman in a denim jacket ran to the lobby, holding one arm against her ribs. Blood darkened her sleeve. While she crossed the lot, the outside phone line rang. I answered, expecting Wade. The woman's voice came through the receiver before she reached the door. "He's after me," she whispered. "Please don't make me stand outside." I could hear her lips moving through the glass, but the words reached the phone slightly before she spoke them. A pre-recorded plea. The old man in 214 had not merely predicted her arrival. He had given me enough time to notice how the trick worked. I remembered the warning and kept the door locked. "Please," she shouted through the glass. "My phone's dead. Someone shot at me." She looked terrified. Behind her, the dust erased the highway. I picked up the intercom. "Are you alone?" "Yes." "Please let me in." The phone rang again. 214. I answered without taking my eyes off the woman. Arthur Bell said, "Look at the back seat." The sedan's rear window was tinted, but each flash of the vacancy sign showed a vague shape inside. I changed the security camera angle and zoomed in. A man was crouched behind the driver's seat. He raised his face toward the camera. The woman outside saw my expression. She stepped back from the door and pulled a handgun from beneath her jacket. The man climbed out of the sedan with a shotgun. They were not strangers. They moved together, one toward the lobby entrance and one toward the side office window. The man opened the sedan's trunk. Inside were bolt cutters, plastic sheeting, a shovel, and a red gasoline can. The sight removed any hope that they only wanted money. I tried the radio under the counter. The woman had jammed the transmit button with a strip of tape during a visit earlier that week. Deputies later found her fingerprints on it. My cell showed 1 week bar, enough to send a text but not complete a call. I messaged Wade and 911 with the motel address and the words armed robbery. Wade replied first. Keep them out of the office. Safe under floor. It was the first time he had mentioned a safe under the floor. It also told me why he was coming through a dust storm when he ignored every other emergency. The woman saw the phone in my hand and aimed at the glass. I hit the silent alarm. Nothing happened. The panel had no power. Open up, the woman called. Her frightened voice was gone. We only need the safe. There was less than $300 in it, but I did not think they planned to leave a witness. The old motel office had been remodeled so many times that nothing lined up. A locked door behind me led to a storage room. Beyond that was the former manager's apartment, sealed since a kitchen fire decades earlier. Wade used it for broken furniture and tax files. The brass key in my hand felt warm. The woman fired once into the lobby lock. I ran through the storage room, shoved boxes aside, and reached the apartment door. The 214 key slid into its deadbolt. The door opened onto a staircase. That was impossible. There was no second floor, but narrow steps climbed into darkness above the motel ceiling. The office window shattered behind me. I heard the woman enter the lobby. I climbed. At the top was a carpeted hallway with faded gold wallpaper. Doors lined each side, numbered 201, 202, 203. The air smelled of smoke. Through a window at the end, I saw the motel parking lot below, though I should have been standing inside the roof. The door marked 214 stood open. Arthur Bell waited inside beside a black rotary phone. Who are they? I asked. The same kind who came before. Downstairs, the woman shouted that she could hear me. Footsteps entered the storage room. Arthur pointed to his leather suitcase, now resting on the bed. Take it when the bell rings. What bell? He closed the door between us. I was suddenly back in the ground floor storage room. The staircase was gone. My hand rested against a scorched plaster wall. Arthur's suitcase sat at my feet. The woman stepped through the doorway and aimed at me. Before she fired, a bell rang above us. The old fire alarm. Every sprinkler head in the motel erupted. Water hammered the walls and turned decades of dust into black mud. The woman flinched. I swung the suitcase into her knees. It was still impossibly heavy. She fell, and the handgun slid beneath a shelf. Her partner came through the office with the shotgun raised. The storage room floor collapsed beneath him. Boards, boxes, and the man disappeared into a cavity under the building. The shotgun discharged once, blowing apart the ceiling. He landed in a brick-lined chamber that had been hidden below the office. The fall broke his hip and pinned him beneath a beam. I grabbed the woman's gun, backed into the lobby, and held it on her until sheriff's deputies arrived. Wade reached the motel 10 minutes later. He stared at the water, the hole, and Arthur's suitcase without speaking. Inside the underground chamber, deputies found an old safe. It contained payroll ledgers, land deeds, and newspaper clippings about a robbery at the Desert Star in 1976. The original owner, Arthur Bell, had been forced to open the safe and then shot. His killers set fire to the manager's apartment, hoping to destroy evidence. The motel was rebuilt as a single-story property. Room 214, where Arthur died, had been removed from the plans. The safe also contained 3 cloth bank bags. The woman who attacked me was Arthur's great-niece. Wade had told her about rumors of money hidden under the office. She and her boyfriend staged the roadside emergency to get inside, never knowing the money had gone out of circulation half a century earlier. Wade avoided criminal charges for the robbery, but the motel owners fired him for concealing the floor safe and the history of the property. He later admitted Arthur had called him from 214 on 3 previous nights. Each call warned of a leaking gas line, an electrical fire, or a guest having a heart attack. Every warning was accurate. Wade listened when his own safety was involved. He ignored the calls when they might inconvenience the business. Wade admitted that employees had reported calls from 214 for years. He kept the brass key under the register because the previous owner told him never to throw it away. He had not warned me because he thought I would quit. He was right about that. The Desert Star closed during repairs. The hidden chamber became evidence, and the old suitcase went to Arthur's surviving family. It held business papers, a change of clothes, and a brass desk bell wrapped in a burned towel. Nothing supernatural. Nothing heavy enough to knock a person down. I moved to Phoenix and completed nursing school. I work in a crowded emergency department now, where I am almost never alone. 2 years after the motel closed, Interstate 8 carried me through Yuma after sunset. The Desert Star was still dark behind a chain-link fence. Most of the sign had fallen, and weeds filled the empty pool. As I passed, a square of yellow light appeared above the office. For a moment, I saw a second-floor balcony. An old man in a tan suit stood at the railing, one hand resting on the rail. I raised mine from the steering wheel. He nodded once. Then room 214 went dark for the last time. Story 5. At 1:36 in the morning, Colorado State Patrol told me the snowplow following my car did not belong to the state. By then, it had been behind me for 23 miles. My name is Danielle Brooks. I was 31 and worked as a respiratory therapist at a hospital in Montrose. A co-worker's emergency had kept me 4 hours past the end of my shift, and I did not start south toward Ouray until after midnight. Snow had been falling since dinner. The forecast called for 3 inches. In the mountains, forecasts are less like promises and more like guesses people make from warm offices. By the time I passed Kelowna, the highway had nearly disappeared. Wind drove snow across my headlights in white ribbons. The lane markers vanished, then reappeared without warning. I slowed to 30 and followed the dark line of pavement between the banks. The plow joined me north of Ridgeway. At first, I was grateful. Its amber beacon rose behind me, followed by 2 square headlights and the broad orange blade. I expected it to pass. Instead, it stayed 3 car lengths back. I moved toward the shoulder and waved it around. The plow moved with me. When I sped up, it sped up. When I slowed, the blade drew close enough to fill my rearview mirror. Snow curled from its edges like smoke. I called the non-emergency highway number through my car's hands-free system. The signal broke twice before a dispatcher named Kyle answered. "I'm on 550 south of Ridgeway," I said. "One of your plows is riding my bumper." He asked for the truck number. I wiped fog from the rear window and waited for the amber beacon to turn. A black number had been painted on the cab. 42. The line went quiet. "Ma'am, CDOD 42 was retired after an engine fire. We have no active units on that section until 3. I looked behind me again. The plow flashed its high beams. Then a scrolling LED panel above its windshield came on. "Pull over for safety." The message seemed official until the last word disappeared and another replaced it. "Pull over, Danielle." I had given my name to the dispatcher. The driver had either intercepted the call or heard me through a radio scanner. Trooper Hale asked me to describe anything else I could see. The state emblem on the truck's door had been covered by an orange magnetic panel. One corner lifted in the wind, exposing scorched paint beneath it. Kyle had said Unit 42 burned before auction. "Do you have enough fuel to reach Ouray?" Hale asked. "Half a tank." "Any passengers?" "Just me." The answer felt dangerous the instant I said it. The plow's high beams flashed once, as if acknowledging that it had heard. Hale kept me talking. She had me describe mile markers, curves, guardrails, and every sign I passed. Her calm voice turned the highway into a series of small tasks. Reach the next reflector. Ease through the turn. Do not stare into the mirror. Keep space ahead. At mile 86, I passed a roadside memorial nearly buried by snow. A wooden cross held 2 plastic sunflowers and a photograph of a young woman. The plow slowed beside it. For 3 seconds, the truck stopped following me. Then its engine roared, and it came back faster. Cal transferred me to State Patrol. Trooper Hale told me to continue toward Ouray and not stop. A patrol SUV was leaving Ridgeway, but the storm would slow it. "Can you see the driver?" she asked. "No. The cab is dark." "Is there a license plate?" I could not see one. The road narrowed as it entered the canyon. Rock rose on my left. The Uncompahgre River dropped away to my right, black beneath ledges of ice. There were no houses and nowhere to turn around. The plow struck me. It was a gentle impact, almost a tap. My car lurched forward. I screamed and gripped the wheel while the tires searched for pavement. "Danielle," Trooper Hale said. "What happened?" "He hit me." The plow backed off, then surged again. This time its blade caught the left corner of my bumper. My car rotated toward the river. I steered into the slide, a lesson remembered from my father shouting across an empty high school parking lot. The rear tires bit. I straightened inches from the snowbank. The call dropped. Ahead, a blue sign marked a chain station and emergency telephone. I turned into the pullout, hoping the plow would continue past. It blocked the exit. For the first time, the truck stopped. Its engine idled with a deep, uneven knock. The amber beacon painted the snow orange, black, orange, black. The driver's door opened. A man climbed down wearing reflective coveralls and a white snowmobile helmet. He carried a pry bar. I grabbed the emergency phone mounted beside the chain-up map. Its cord had been sliced and tucked neatly behind the box. This was not the first time the driver had used that pullout. The man stopped beside my hood. A laminated CDOT badge hung from his neck, but the photograph had been scratched away. "Trooper Hale can't hear you here," he said. He tapped the side of his helmet. A radio speaker crackled inside it with the dispatcher's distant voice calling my name. "What do you want?" I shouted through the closed window. "Keys on the dashboard. Phone on the seat. Then get out." "Why?" He tilted his helmet toward the river. "Because cars leave roads in storms." The simple way he said it told me he had rehearsed the explanation. I put my car in reverse, but the pullout ended against a wall of plowed snow. The man approached my window and knocked with one gloved finger. "You have damage," he called. "Step out where I can see it." His voice was calm. That made it worse. I leaned on the horn. He struck the side window with the pry bar. A white star appeared in the glass. My headlights showed a narrow gap between the truck's blade and the rock wall. It did not look wide enough. Staying guaranteed that he would reach me. I shifted into drive and aimed for the gap. Metal shrieked along both sides of my car. The passenger mirror tore off. The plow blade sliced through the rear door, but momentum carried me back onto the highway. The man ran for his cab. I did not wait to see if he followed. Ouray was 12 miles ahead. Between us lay 2 avalanche chutes and a stretch of road cut into the cliff. The car shook from the damaged rear panel. Warning lights glowed across the dashboard. Then the amber beacon reappeared. The plow gained quickly. Its engine had more power, more weight, and nowhere else to go. I called 911 again. Trooper Hale returned, her voice chopped by static. The rear door warning chimed continuously where the blade had peeled the metal away. Snow spun through the gap and covered the back seat. My shoulder belt locked each time the tires slipped. I could smell hot rubber and antifreeze. "If the car fails, what do I do?" I asked. "Set the brake, stay belted, and keep the engine between you and him." I looked at the thin trunk behind me and the giant steel blade filling the mirror. The engine would not be between us for long. "I'm not stopping." "Then I'm staying with you." Hale read the next turns from a road map while I drove them. Left bend, short straight, rockfall fence, right bend. Her directions arrived through static an instant before my headlights found each landmark. The road became less like a mountain and more like a narrow promise passed from one stranger to another. "The Ridgeway unit can't reach you," she said. A slide crossed the highway behind the truck. I understood then that the driver had chosen the storm carefully. No witnesses could approach from the north. What's ahead? I asked. Ouray closure gate at mile 92. It should be raised. Can it stop a plow? She hesitated. Not if it's raised. The plow hit me again. My rear glass burst inward. Snow and safety glass sprayed across the seats. The blade stayed against my bumper, pushing. My speed climbed past 50 on a road I could barely see. I pressed the accelerator. The contact broke. I gained 50 yards, then 100. The closure gate appeared through the snow, a striped steel arm standing upright beside a small control box. I remembered the summer roadwork crews lowering those gates with a hand crank. I also remembered the narrow avalanche control lane immediately beyond one of them. I braked hard, jumped from the car, and ran to the control box. The plow was a moving glow in the storm. The box opened without a key. Inside, instructions showed a red emergency lever. I pulled it. The gate began to descend with painful slowness. The plow was 500 feet away. I got back into my car and drove beneath the half-lowered arm. It scraped the roof but passed over me. Ahead, I turned sharply into the avalanche control lane and stopped behind a barrier of concrete blocks. The plow reached the gate. The driver could have stopped. I saw the brake lights flare. Then they went dark. He accelerated. The steel arm struck the cab at windshield height. It tore through the glass and caught against the beacon mount. The truck swerved, climbed the outer snowbank, and rolled onto its side. The blade dug into the pavement. The rear of the truck swung around and blocked both lanes. I locked my doors and waited. For nearly a minute, nothing moved. Then the man crawled from the broken windshield. His helmet was gone. Blood covered one side of his face, but he still held the pry bar. He staggered toward my car. Before he reached the concrete blocks, white headlights appeared from the south. 2 Ouray County deputies stepped out with rifles aimed. The man dropped the bar and fell to his knees. His name was Peter Kroll. He had driven snowplows for a private highway contractor before losing his commercial license. Months earlier, he bought CDOD 42 at auction for scrap and restored it without registering the vehicle. Investigators found chains, sedatives, women's clothing, and 3 sets of license plates inside a compartment behind the salt hopper. His phone contained videos of drivers losing control while he pushed them along icy roads. Most had believed the crashes were accidents. 2 people had disappeared. The slide behind us was not entirely natural. Kroll had parked a stolen utility trailer across one lane and packed snow around it, making the highway look closed. He created a stretch of road where help would be delayed, then waited for someone traveling alone. My dashboard camera recorded everything. The defense tried to claim he meant to assist me, that the impacts were caused by ice, and that I panicked. The video showed his pry bar striking my window. It showed the truck accelerating after I escaped. It showed him walking toward me after the rollover. The jury took 51 minutes. I still drive at night for work, but I check the weather, road closures, and vehicle numbers before I leave. For a while, amber beacons made my hands shake. Eventually, they became what they were supposed to be again, a warning to slow down, not a reason to run. The damaged hatch from my car hangs in the Colorado State Patrol Training Center now. New dispatchers use my call to learn what a controlled pursuit sounds like. Trooper Hale invited me to speak to a class last winter. Afterward, a young dispatcher asked how I kept thinking while a 10-ton truck tried to push me off a mountain. I told him the truth. I was terrified. Courage did not replace the fear. It simply kept one hand on the wheel while fear screamed in the passenger seat. Story 6. The first caller told me the studio window would break in 9 seconds. I counted because I wanted to prove him wrong. At 9, the glass cracked behind me. My name is Mara Ellis, and I hosted the midnight shift at WPRL, a small AM station outside Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The building sat alone beside a drainage canal and 200 acres of sugarcane. During the day, we aired local news, high school sports, and call-in arguments about LSU football. After midnight, the station became mine. My program was called The Long Way Home. Truckers, nurses, insomniacs, and people too lonely to sleep called to tell stories. I played old records between them and tried to make the dark feel less empty. The storm arrived just before my Sunday shift. Lightning moved along the horizon without thunder. The air smelled metallic, and every radio in the building hissed between stations. Our engineer, Pete, had gone home sick. That left me alone with a producer's console, 6 phone lines, and an emergency button connected to the parish sheriff. At 12:07, line 3 flashed. "You're on the long way home," I said. A man answered through heavy static. "Mara, step away from the west window." "Who is this?" "It breaks in 9 seconds." I muted the call and watched the digital clock. 9 seconds later, a fracture snapped across the studio glass. I rolled my chair backward. The window faced an unlit courtyard enclosed by the rest of the station. Nothing stood outside. There had been no impact, only a crack spreading from the center, as if a fingertip pressed against the other side. I put the caller back on air. "How did you know that?" The line was dead. Line 1 lit immediately. A woman said, "Don't use the alarm." He cut it before the show. I pressed the emergency button anyway. Its green test light stayed dark. "Who cut it?" "The man by the cane field." The call ended. I switched on the exterior cameras. Rain had not started, but heat lightning bleached the cane white every few seconds. At the edge of the parking lot, a man stood beside the drainage ditch. He wore a dark raincoat. His face was turned toward the studio. I called 911. My cell displayed call failed. The station phone produced only a dial tone, no matter what number I entered. Then line 5 rang. "Mara," a teenage boy whispered. "He comes in through the record room at 12:19. The clock showed 12:16. "Where are you calling from?" "Port Allen." "What's your name?" "Caleb." "How can you see my station?" He was quiet for a moment. "I can't. I can hear what happens next." The line filled with a high tone. Beneath it, I heard my own voice. Not an echo, a recording. I heard myself say, "Who are you?" Then glass shattered, a chair scraped, and a man breathed close to the microphone. The recording ended with a gunshot. The live clock changed to 12:18. I locked the studio and ran to the record room. Its outside door appeared closed, but the deadbolt had been removed. Fresh metal filings glittered on the floor. I shoved a filing cabinet against it and returned to the console. At 12:19, someone pushed the outside door. The cabinet slid an inch. My microphone was still live. I told listeners that an intruder was entering the station and gave the address. The audio meter moved, but the transmitter display showed 0 output. Whoever was outside had cut the main antenna feed. The phone lines began lighting in sequence. Line 2 was a nurse in Gonzales. She told me the intruder would cross the newsroom at 12:23. Line 4 was a trucker near Lafayette. He said the man carried a revolver in his right pocket. Line 6 was an old woman who refused to give her location. I asked each caller for something I could verify. The nurse gave me her full name, Dana Whitlock, and said she worked at Ascension Memorial. That hospital had been renamed 10 years earlier. The trucker said he was parked at a diner demolished after Hurricane Katrina. Caleb described a pay phone outside a pharmacy that no longer existed. They were not calling from one time. "What date is it?" I asked the nurse. "August 14th, 1988. The trucker said 2005. Caleb said 1994. Each one insisted my voice had interrupted whatever they were listening to. The nurse heard me through a bedside radio. The trucker heard me on a cassette recorded from WPRL. Caleb heard me through the payphone receiver before he inserted a coin. "There's a show underneath yours," Caleb said. "A lady keeps telling people to stay awake while they drive. Then you break through and start asking us questions." The old woman alone seemed unsurprised. "Radio waves do not die where you think they do," she told me. "Sometimes a storm folds them until the beginning touches the end." "Studio B," she said. "The door still locks from the hall. How do all of you know this?" "We heard the tape." "What tape?" "Tomorrow's." The record room cabinet tipped over. I switched the console to automation and let an instrumental track play through the dead transmitter. Then I crawled into the hall and moved toward Studio B. The station lights went out. Red backup lamps came on near the floor. I heard slow steps enter the newsroom, followed by the soft click of a revolver being cocked. The newsroom printer activated. A single page emerged containing the station's program log from August 1978. Someone had circled 12:27 a.m. beside Evelyn Shaw's name. Below it, in newer ink, was my name and the same time. The building clock advanced to 12:24. I moved between desks while the intruder searched the main studio. A drawer opened. Cassette cases hit the floor. He was not moving randomly. He knew the station layout as it had existed before renovation. I reached the archive shelves and found a fresh smear of blood on one box. Pete's blood, the deputies later determined. He had hidden something there while Raymond forced him through the building. Inside the box was a note addressed to me. Mara, if he comes back, the original is in B. Do not broadcast it. Get out. Pete had tried to protect me. The callers were offering another choice. Mara, a man called. I only want the recording. I slipped into Studio B. It had not been used in years. Dust covered the console. Acoustic foam peeled from the walls. An old reel-to-reel machine sat beneath a canvas cover. The phone on the desk rang. I answered before the first ring ended. The old woman said, "Play Reel 31. A shelf held dozens of archived broadcasts. Reel 31 was already threaded onto the machine. I pressed play. The tape began with station identification from August 1978. A young female host introduced an overnight program called Night Bridge. Her name was Evelyn Shaw. Then the call started. I recognized every voice from my phone lines. The man who predicted the broken window. The nurse. Caleb. The trucker. They warned Evelyn that someone was outside. They told her not to use the alarm. They described a revolver. Evelyn laughed nervously and accused them of coordinating a prank. At 12:27 on the recording, a man entered her studio. I heard a struggle. A gun fired. The tape kept running for 6 more minutes while Evelyn died beside the microphone. The official story came back to me. WPRL's first overnight host had been murdered by a drifter. The case was never solved. Staff rarely mentioned it. The footsteps stopped outside Studio B. Give me the reel, the intruder said through the door. I looked at the clock. 12:26. The old woman remained on the phone. He thinks that tape identifies him. Does it? Listen to the end. I fast-forwarded past the gunshot. At the very end, a younger male voice whispered near Evelyn's microphone. Dad, we have to go. The intruder struck the door. Would split near the lock. I understood. The killer had not been a lone drifter. Someone else had been present, someone young enough in 1978 to still be alive. Your father killed Evelyn, I called. The pounding stopped. He made me watch, the man said. His voice sounded old now. Tired. And tonight? Pete found the reel. He said he was giving it to the sheriff. Our engineer had not gone home sick. He had discovered evidence, called the wrong person, and been forced to reveal where he left it. The man hit the door again. The lock tore halfway free. Every phone in Studio B rang at once. The sound startled him. His shadow moved beneath the door. I opened it suddenly, driving the edge into his face. The revolver fired into the ceiling. I ran past him, through the newsroom, and into the main studio. He followed. The callers had said Studio be locked from the hall. I had assumed the advice was for me. It was for him. I stopped behind the main console and switched on a microphone. The reel is in Studio B. He turned back. He entered the old room, saw the machine, and grabbed the tape. I crossed the hall and pulled the door shut. The latch caught. He fired twice through the wood, but the angle was wrong. I ran to the parking lot and kept running down the highway until a delivery driver found me. Deputies arrested the man inside Studio B. His name was Raymond Cole. His father had worked maintenance at WPRL in 1978. Raymond was 15 when he helped him enter the station and later hid the recording. Pete survived being beaten and locked in a transmitter shed. The real convicted Raymond as an accessory to Evelyn's murder and of attempting to kill me. It did not explain the calls. Telephone records showed no incoming connections during my show. The 6 people who spoke to me could not be identified. Caleb's stated number in Port Allen belonged to a pay phone removed in 1996. We tried to find the callers through station archives. Adana Whitlock had worked at Ascension Memorial in 1988, but she died in 2012 without ever mentioning WPRL. A trucker matching the 4th caller survived Katrina and told his daughter about hearing a frightened radio host through a cassette that erased itself afterward. Caleb was never identified. Somewhere in Port Allen, a 14-year-old boy may have lifted a pay phone and heard a murder that had not happened yet. The strangest discovery involved the reel itself. Before my broadcast, the tape contained Evelyn's death and Raymond's whispered voice. After his arrest, the final 6 minutes changed. Evelyn still confronted an intruder, but the gun never fired. Instead, the recording captured a door closing, distant police sirens, and a woman laughing with disbelief. The evidence technicians made 3 copies. By the next morning, all 4 tapes had returned to the original ending. It was as if history could bend long enough to show us another path, but refused to pretend the first tragedy had never occurred. Our recording of that night contained my side of every conversation. The callers were silent, except one. The old woman's final words remained on the audio after I locked Raymond in Studio B. "That's not how it ended for me," she said. "I'm glad it ends differently for you." A voice specialist compared her speech with Evelyn Shaw's surviving station clips. The match was not perfect. Evelyn had been 29 when she died. The caller sounded at least 80, but their accent, cadence, and small habit of breathing before the letter S were the same. WPRL demolished Studio B during renovation. I kept hosting The Long Way Home, though never alone. We placed Evelyn's photograph above the console and played one of her introductions at midnight every August. Once a year, line 6 lights after the introduction. When I answer, there is no prophecy and no warning. Just an old woman listening to the life she finally got to have somewhere else. Story 7. The dog would not go into the basement, but every night at 2 o'clock, he stood at the top of the stairs and growled at something below it. I was house-sitting in Shaker Heights, Ohio, for a couple named Leland and Marcy Voss. Their home was a brick Tudor on a quiet street where the lawns looked professionally measured. Inside, everything was controlled by an app: lights, locks, cameras, blinds, temperature, even the dog door. The dog was a 100-pound black German shepherd named Bishop. The Vosses told me he was friendly unless someone entered without permission. Then he becomes a different animal, Leland said. I thought he was bragging. Later, I understood he was testing me. My name is Avery Kim. I was 27, working at a veterinary clinic and saving for graduate school. I had watched Bishop twice during the day and trusted him more than I trusted most people. The Vosses offered $800 for 4 nights while they attended a real estate conference in Miami. It sounded easy. Before leaving, Marcy walked me through the house. I could use the kitchen, library, guest suite, and gym. The basement was off limits because of mold treatment. The door will stay locked, she said. If the system reports movement down there, ignore it. The sensors have been acting up. That should have bothered me. $800 made it sound reasonable. There were other details I excused for the same reason. Marcy asked me to wear a fitness watch so the home system could track sleep quality. Leland had me demonstrate how quickly I could reach Bishop's leash from the guest room. A laminated emergency map showed a storm shelter beneath the library, but when I asked to see it, Marcy said the map came with the house and was outdated. Before driving away, Leland crouched beside Bishop and gave him a command I did not recognize. Reset. Bishop lowered his head and walked to a square of carpet outside the kitchen. He stayed there until the garage closed. I released him with the German word for free that the Vosses had taught me. He immediately went to the basement door and smelled the frame from top to bottom. The first night passed quietly until 2 o'clock. Bishop woke from a dead sleep and walked to the basement door. He did not bark. He pressed his nose to the gap beneath it and released a low growl that vibrated through the floor. My phone displayed a smart home alert. Lower level occupied. I checked the indoor cameras. Kitchen empty. Mudroom empty. Main hall empty. The basement feed showed gray static. After 5 minutes, Bishop returned to bed. The alert cleared. At breakfast, I messaged Marcy. She replied with a laughing emoji and wrote, "Old pipes. Don't let Bish scare you." The second night, he growled at the same time. This time, 3 soft knocks answered from below. I called Leland. He sounded as if I had awakened him. "Furnace," he said. "Furnaces don't knock back." "Avery, the door is locked. You're safe." He emphasized the door, not the basement. At 2:07, my phone showed another alert. Guest suite window open. I was standing in the guest suite. The window was closed and latched. Bishop left the basement door and walked to the wardrobe. He pawed at its base. Behind the hanging robes, I found a tiny camera recessed into a screw head and aimed at the bed. I covered it with tape. My phone rang immediately. Leland said, "The system lost video in your room." I felt cold despite the heat running. "Why is there a camera in the wardrobe?" "Security." Pointed at the bed? He did not answer. The house speakers clicked on after the call. "Please restore visual coverage," a pleasant automated voice said. I removed the camera from the wardrobe instead. Behind it, a cable disappeared through a hole lined with fresh sawdust. Someone had installed it recently, not when the house was built. I carried the camera into the kitchen and aimed it at the wall. The automated voice repeated its request. Then the lights shut off in every room except the basement landing. The system wanted me to go there. I stayed in the kitchen. After a minute, the television turned on by itself. It showed the guest room from the camera I had just moved, but the displayed angle still looked down at the bed. The footage was pre-recorded. On the screen, I was asleep beneath the blue quilt from the night before. At 2:03, the wardrobe door opened behind me. A person crawled halfway into the room, watched me for nearly a minute, then withdrew. Bishop stood in the real kitchen beside me, hackles raised. In the recording, he was not visible. The Vosses had locked him somewhere else while the person entered. I checked the inside of his collar. Beneath the identification tag, someone had taped a second tag stamped subject control. I packed my bag. The front door would not unlock. The app displayed owner override. I tried the mudroom, patio, and garage. All had been remotely secured. The windows were laminated security glass. Leland opened the house. "You're overreacting," he said. "We'll be home tomorrow. Finish the job and you'll be paid." The call ended. Bishop returned to the basement door and scratched once. The brass knob turned from the other side. I took a knife from the kitchen and backed away. The knob stopped. A thin white card slid beneath the door. On it, someone had written, "They are watching the stairs." Pantry floor. I went to the pantry. Bishop followed, tail low. Beneath a rolling shelf, the wood floor had a recessed metal ring. I pulled it and lifted a hatch. Narrow steps descended into darkness. The pantry was on the opposite side of the house from the basement stairs. According to the layout, the space below should have been solid earth. I used my phone flashlight and went down. The hidden staircase ended in a concrete corridor. Electrical cables ran along the ceiling. One direction led toward the regular basement. The other opened into a control room. 16 monitors covered the wall. They showed every room in the house from angles the visible security system did not have. The guest bed camera was only one of them. A camera over the shower showed the tile in sharp detail. Another showed the toilet. For displayed recordings of previous house sitters sleeping, changing clothes, eating, and making phone calls. On a table lay printed profiles. Mine included my address, class schedule, work hours, debts, and a list of relatives. Across the top, someone had stamped Subject 14. A video folder on the computer was labeled Trials. Beside the keyboard sat a tray of props, blank masks, plastic knives, syringes filled with saline, packets of stage blood, and 3 real stun guns. Labels divided them into fear, pain, and final. The separation between performance and violence had been organized like office supplies. A whiteboard listed betting categories. First exit attempt. First cry. Dog response. Basement discovery. One line offered triple odds if subject 14 found the second staircase without assistance. My name appeared beside subject 14. Someone in the online chat had already won that bet. The screen showed my face through a camera above the control room door. Comments celebrated that I had arrived early. One user asked whether the reset girl had helped me. That was when Tori spoke behind me. I opened the most recent file. A young man sat in the guest suite where I had slept. At 2 a.m., someone wearing a blank white mask entered through a panel behind the wardrobe. The man woke, ran, and found the exits locked. The video followed him from room to room as the masked person hunted him. The recording ended in the basement. I stopped it before I saw everything. Behind me, someone whispered, "They make people bet." I turned with the knife raised. A woman stood in the corridor. She was barefoot, thin, and wearing gray sweatpants and a sweatshirt. Her name was Tori Gaines. She had accepted the same house-sitting job 2 months earlier. The Vossas told her family she stole jewelry and disappeared. "They keep me down here between trials," she said. "They make me reset the rooms." Leland and Marcy ran a private online club where anonymous viewers wagered on how long selected guests would evade an attacker. Some trials ended when the subject found a hidden exit. Others did not. "Who wears the mask?" I asked. "Sometimes Leland. Sometimes someone who pays." A chime sounded through the corridor. The monitors switched to a live view of the garage. The door rose. Leland and Marcy stepped from an SUV. They had never gone to Miami. Marcy looked directly into the garage camera and smiled. "Trial begins," a recorded voice announced. Tori showed me a service door leading to the regular basement, but an electronic lock held it closed. The pantry hatch sealed above us. The control room screens displayed a chat moving too fast to read. Dollar amounts appeared beside our names. Leland entered the house wearing the white mask. He carried a stun baton, not a knife. He wanted us alive long enough to entertain the viewers. I looked at the control console. The Vossas controlled the house through their phones, but the hidden room controlled the phones. Every lock, light, camera, and appliance connected to one central panel. "Can you use this?" I asked Tori. "They never leave it unlocked." They had left it unlocked for the live broadcast. I opened every exterior door in the house. Marcy shouted upstairs. Leland quickened his pace toward the hidden corridor. Then I activated the fire sprinklers, exterior siren, bedroom alarms, pool cover, lawn irrigation, and every light at once. The electrical load tripped half the breakers. Screens blinked out. Electronic locks released with a series of heavy clicks. Tori ran for the basement stairs. Leland entered the corridor and swung the baton. Bishop came through the service door behind him. The dog did become a different animal. He hit Leland in the chest and drove him to the floor. The baton discharged against concrete. I dragged Bishop back before he could reach Leland's throat, then locked Leland inside the hidden corridor. Marcy was in the backyard, trying to reach the control room through a second entrance beside the indoor pool. I closed the motorized pool cover while she crossed it. The vinyl rolled beneath her feet and dropped her into the deep end. The cover stopped above her, leaving only a foot of air. She screamed and clawed at it until police arrived. The smart house had called emergency services automatically when I triggered every alarm. Neighbors also poured into the street because the siren announced, in a calm electronic voice, that there were captives below the residence. Tori survived. So had 2 other missing house sitters whose profiles we found, though one would never walk without a cane. Detectives traced the online club through payment records on the control computer. The case led to arrests in 7 states. Leland and Marcy claimed the trials were staged and everyone had consented. The live stream of us begging to be released made that argument difficult. So did the human remains beneath a newly poured section of the lower foundation. Bishop was taken as evidence for 3 weeks. After that, the Voss's relatives surrendered him. Tori could not bear to be near the house, and I could not bear the thought of him going to strangers. He lives with me now. I no longer house sit, and I put tape over cameras when I am not using them. Bishop still wakes at 2 o'clock some nights. He walks through my apartment, checks the front door, and returns to bed. There is no basement beneath us. I verified that before signing the lease. But the first night we moved in, Bishop scratched at the kitchen floor. I nearly ran. Then he looked at the cabinet where I kept his treats and wagged his tail. That was the first time either of us heard a knock in the dark and discovered that nothing terrible was waiting on the other side. Story 8. At 3:03 a.m., a man entered my gas station and bought a bottle of water with a coin dated 90 years in the future. The station stood beside US 54 in southern New Mexico, halfway between Carrizozo and the next place anyone would call a town. A green highway marker outside read Mile 91. We sold diesel, coffee, jerky, and just enough groceries to rescue people who had forgotten how empty the desert could be. I worked nights because the owner paid extra and let me study at the counter. My name is Rene Alvarez. I was 23, enrolled in an online paralegal program, and convinced I had grown immune to strange travelers. Then came the dust storm. It rolled across the highway shortly after midnight, a brown wall that erased the mountains. State police closed the road in both directions. By 1 o'clock, I had no customers, no cell service, and sand whispering against every window. The closure gate stood 10 miles north, and the next staff building was a checkpoint far to the south. On clear nights, I could see headlights coming for 15 minutes. In that storm, the world ended at the edge of the canopy. Around 2 o'clock, Pump 6 began counting gallons. No vehicle stood beside it. The display climbed from 0 to 30, then 90, then 900 without charging a dollar. Instead of a price, the payment screen displayed a year that moved backward: 1954, 1941, 1926. At 1926, the pump stopped. The receipt printer produced 61 identical slips. Each said water owed. I carried one to the window. For a second, the dust thinned enough to reveal a row of wooden houses where the highway should have been. Porch lamps burned behind the storm. A mine head frame rose beyond them, black against constant lightning. Then sand closed over the view, and the empty highway returned. At 2:40, the restroom faucet turned on by itself. I shut it off. The handle was cold. 5 minutes later, the coffee machine emptied onto the floor, even though its reservoir was nearly dry. Then the ice freezer began to hiss. Every cube inside had vanished, leaving only warm water running from the drain. I called my boss on the landline. The number connected to a recorded message I had never heard before. San Cordero municipal offices are closed, a woman said. Residents should report to the mine shelter before sundown. San Cordero was not a town I knew. The recording ended with 3 tones. After that, every number I dialed reached the same message. At 3 o'clock, the dust stopped moving. Not settled. Stopped. Each grain hung in the exterior lights like brown snow frozen in the air. Beyond the pumps, shapes appeared on the highway. Men, women, and children walked toward the station carrying buckets, jars, cooking pots, anything that could hold water. Their clothes looked old. Work shirts buttoned to the throat, plain dresses, felt hats. Their faces and hair were coated white with dust. They gathered outside the locked doors. A woman held up an empty milk bottle. "Please," she said through the glass. The well went bad. I should have been terrified. Mostly, I felt sorry for them. There were children in that crowd. One little boy licked his cracked lips until they bled. I reached for the lock. The woman's expression changed. "Not him," she said. The crowd separated. A tall man stood beneath the canopy at Pump 4. He wore a black suit, powdered gray at the shoulders. His skin had tightened around his skull. When he smiled, dust poured from his mouth. "Water," he said. The word came through the glass, although he stood 50 feet away. The others backed from him. The little boy dropped his bucket. I unlocked the night drawer, but kept the door secured. "I can pass water out 1 bottle at a time." The woman shook her head. "Anything he sees given becomes his." "Then how do I help you?" You can't. Not while he owns the well. The tall man spread his hands. They stole from me. I only collect what is mine. The people outside lowered their eyes. Their fear had the exhausted shape of something repeated too many times. I tried to push a bottle through the payment drawer toward the little boy without scanning it. Before he reached it, the plastic shriveled. Brown water ran uphill across the pavement, circled the tall man's shoes, and vanished into the dust beneath him. A gift is still a gift, he said. He placed one hand against the glass. Fine cracks formed beneath his palm, not from pressure but from dryness. The rubber seals around the window curled and split. My lips began bleeding. What happens if I don't sell? I asked the woman. The sun comes up. We go back below. And him? He waits for another clerk. She looked beyond me at shelves stacked with water. He has been waiting a long time. The tall man walked to the door. I have money. He slid a coin through the night payment drawer. It resembled a silver dollar, but the face belonged to no president. One side showed a dry reservoir. The other was stamped United States of America, 2116. One bottle, he said. I should have refused. Instead, I thought of the road closure and the possibility that this was an elaborate prank played on a woman alone. I scanned the cheapest water, took the coin, and placed the bottle in the drawer. He removed it without touching the plastic. The water inside turned brown. The bottle collapsed as if squeezed by an invisible hand. When he opened his mouth, the liquid rose in a thin stream and disappeared between his teeth. Every light in the station dimmed. The people outside began to cry. The woman with the milk bottle struck the glass. You sold to him. Now he can enter. The lock clicked open. I grabbed it, but the door pulled away from me. Hot air rushed inside. The tall man crossed the threshold, and moisture vanished wherever he stepped. Condensation disappeared from the cooler doors. The mop bucket dried in seconds. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. He studied the shelves. So much, he whispered. Bottles began rattling in the coolers. I ran into the stockroom and locked the door. Cases of soda split behind me. Cans collapsed with sharp metallic pops. The man moved through the store without footsteps, drawing every drop toward himself. The landline rang. I answered from the stockroom extension. The recorded woman was gone. A man with a rough voice said, "Break the red pipe." "Who is this?" "Mine pump operator. San Cordero. Listen carefully. He can drink what is carried, bottled, or given. He can't hold running groundwater." "Where are you?" "August 3rd, 1926. Something pushed against the stockroom door. The caller spoke faster. San Cordero had been a mining settlement east of the highway. In 1926, workers drilled into a pocket of hot gas and poisoned the town well. The mine owner, Silas Creed, locked the remaining clean water tank and demanded payment while families became sick. The townspeople broke into the tank. Creed shot 2 of them. During the struggle, a support collapsed and buried the pump room with everyone inside. "He died holding the key," the caller said. "Now every storm he makes us thirsty again." The door cracked around the lock. I looked up. A red fire suppression pipe crossed the ceiling. That water came from a deep well beneath the station and fed the outdoor hydrants. I took a tire iron from the tool shelf and swung at the pipe. The first blow dented it. The second opened a seam. The third tore it apart. Water hit me with enough force to knock me down. It flooded the stockroom and burst through the damaged door. The tall man stood on the other side. The moving water struck his shoes. His body split from the ankles upward. Not flesh, clay. Cracks raced over him, spilling dust. He screamed as the water carried pieces of him across the store. The ceiling sprinklers activated. Outside, the hydrant line ruptured beneath pump 4. Water erupted through the pavement in a white column. The frozen dust began moving again. Wind struck the station. Windows shattered inward. The crowd rushed through the broken wall, but they did not attack me. They stood in the flood, lifting their faces while decades of dust washed from them. The woman filled her milk bottle. The little boy cupped both hands beneath the broken pipe. As the water touched them, their clothing changed. Dusty work shirts became clean. Bruises vanished. Children straightened as if freed from invisible weight. The station filled with overlapping sounds that had been missing from the desert for a century. Laughter, a woman singing, dishes in a kitchen, a mine whistle ending a shift. The caller remained on the stockroom phone. "Is it running?" he asked. "Yes." He exhaled slowly. "Then my girls can drink." I saw him near the back of the crowd, a broad man in work overalls holding the hands of two small girls. He raised the telephone receiver he carried, though no wire connected it to anything. Our lines went silent together. One by one, they faded into the water. Silas Creed crawled toward the front door with half a body. Coins spilled from the cavity in his chest, hundreds of them from years that had not happened. He reached for the dry ground outside. The boy stepped in front of him. "Paid in full," he said. Then he tipped his bucket over Creed's head. The man collapsed into mud. I woke at sunrise beside the freezer aisle. State police and firefighters were moving through 6 inches of water. The station's main line had ruptured, they said, probably because vibration from the storm shifted the old pipe. There were no footprints besides mine. The cameras showed me unlocking the door, placing a bottle in the payment drawer, and then recoiling from empty air. The image cut out when the pipe burst. County records helped me find San Cordero. It had existed, although not where the caller claimed. The settlement lay directly beneath the gas station and highway. After the 1926 mine disaster, the company bulldozed the remaining buildings, sealed the shafts, and removed the town name from later maps. The newspaper version blamed careless workers and called Silas Creed a victim who died protecting company property. Private letters in the state archive told another story. Creed had diverted the clean spring into a tank and sold water back to families whose paychecks he already controlled. When sickness closed the mine, he increased the price. One letter came from the pump operator, Tomas Alvarez. He described cutting a red-painted pressure line during the final struggle so the buried spring could flood the lower shaft. The collapse stopped him before he reached it. Tomas was my great-grandmother's older brother. Our family believed he left New Mexico for California and never rode again. No one knew he had died beneath mile 91 trying to open the water. The official death list contained 61 residents. A newspaper photograph showed them gathered outside the mine office. I recognized the woman, the boy, and the tall owner in the black suit. The station was demolished because the ground beneath it had become unstable. During excavation, workers found the old pump room. Inside were human remains, a rusted water tank key, and a telephone mounted on the wall. Its line had never been connected beyond the mine. No one found the future coin. It disappeared from the register before the police arrived. I thought it was gone until my final paycheck came in the mail. The envelope contained the exact amount I was owed plus one heavy silver dollar. The year had changed from 2116 to 2026. The dry reservoir on the back was full. I keep it in a glass of water on my desk. It has been there for 6 years. The water never evaporates, even in the New Mexico summer. Story 9. The telescope was designed to look millions of light years into space. At 1:48 a.m., it showed me a woman trapped in a farmhouse 11 miles away. I was a graduate researcher at Coyote Mesa Observatory near Fort Davis, Texas. The station had 3 small domes and one 60-inch reflector used for spectroscopy. Most observations were automated, but old motors, sudden weather, and expensive equipment still required a human on site. On the night this happened, that human was me. My name is Nolan Price. I was 26, underpaid, over-caffeinated, and running a sequence on a variable star in Pegasus. The nearest colleague was asleep at a residence building 2 miles down the mountain. Cell service was unreliable, but the observatory radio connected to a county repeater. The sky was almost unnaturally clear. No clouds, no wind. The Milky Way crossed the dome's slit like spilled salt. At 1:48, the telescope canceled my program. The control screen displayed manual target accepted. I had not entered a target. The dome rotated west, and the telescope lowered toward the horizon. I grabbed the emergency paddle and tried to stop it. The motors ignored me. "Come on," I muttered. "You're going to hit the limit." The telescope stopped 5 degrees below its normal safety boundary, pointing toward the Davis Mountains instead of the sky. That angle should have shown only the inside of the dome. Yet the imaging monitor produced a sharp black and white picture. A farmhouse stood in a clearing. The porch sagged. One upstairs window glowed. A woman in a white nightgown pressed both hands to the glass. I assumed the computer had opened an archived image. Telescopes do not see through steel walls, much less aim downhill like surveillance cameras. I checked the file name. It had been created seconds earlier with a 2-second exposure. The woman moved. She struck the window, looked over her shoulder, and raised a sheet of paper. For numbers had been written across it, 3047. Then the image went black. The telescope returned to Pegasus as if nothing had happened. I checked the command history. The manual target had no coordinates. Instead, the operator field contained a name, A. Calder. The login timestamp read 11:48 p.m., October 3, 1967. The observatory did not yet have computer controls in 1967. I copied the logs to an external drive. While it transferred, frost formed around the base of the telescope despite the dome temperature holding at 52 degrees. The frost traced small handprints across the floor. They began beside the mirror and ended at my chair. When I touched one, a sound entered my headphones. A woman was breathing. I had disconnected the guide microphone earlier that night because its cable caused interference. It lay coiled on a shelf, yet the waveform on my screen rose and fell with each breath. Then she whispered, "He kept the first light." I called my supervisor, Dr. Lena Moritz. She answered after the 4th try. I expected her to blame a software glitch. Instead, she became quiet when I mentioned the farmhouse. "Did you save the frame?" she asked. "Yes." "Delete it. Shut down the 60-inch and leave the dome." There was a woman in the image. "Nolan, do exactly what I said." The line dropped. Dr. Moritz sent a remote shutdown command before the connection failed. The dome computer rejected it. A second message appeared on my screen, this one from her personal account. "Do not let it complete another exposure." I typed back, "What is it?" 3 dots showed that she was answering. They disappeared without a message. The telescope's cooling system engaged at full power. The primary mirror temperature fell 6 degrees in less than a minute. On the dark imaging screen, a faint rectangle emerged like a photograph developing in a tray. It showed the same farmhouse, but from inside the upstairs bedroom. A brass telescope stood by the window. Ruth's sheet of paper rested on a desk beside a leather journal and a box of photographic plates. In the reflection of the bedroom mirror, Abram Calder stood directly behind the camera. His eyes were open. His face was burned. I zoomed in on the paper. The 4 numbers could have been an address, a date, or part of a coordinate. County Road 3047 ran along the mountain's western base. I radioed the sheriff's office and described what I had seen. The dispatcher asked for the location of the house. "I don't know. Somewhere west of the observatory, possibly off County Road 3047. Keyboard clicks came through the radio. "There are no occupied structures on that road," she said. "One old foundation belongs to the Calder property. Can you send someone? A deputy will check it." At 2:03, the telescope moved again. This time the farmhouse filled the monitor. The upstairs window was broken. The woman stood behind a bedroom door, holding it shut while a man pushed from the hall. He wore a dark suit and carried a kerosene lantern. She looked directly into the telescope. Then she pointed behind me. I turned. The dome was empty. When I faced the monitor again, the image had changed. It showed the outside of Coyote Mesa's dome. A man stood at the bottom of the metal stairs. The first stair rang beneath a foot. I locked the dome entrance and called the residence building. No answer. The county dispatcher returned, but her transmission broke apart in static. I caught only 3 words. Calder House burned. The stair rang again. I checked the exterior camera. Nobody appeared on it, but the steps continued upward one at a time. I pulled the paper visitor ledger from beneath the console. The final legitimate entry was mine at 7:12 p.m. A second signature had appeared below it in faded brown ink. Abram Calder, Director. The stated purpose of his visit was one word: recovery. I tore out the page. The ink soaked through my glove and left his signature across my palm. The telescope stopped moving, its long tube lowered until the open mirror faced me. At first, I saw only my reflection in the glass. Then another room appeared behind it, the farmhouse bedroom, door shaking beneath heavy blows. Ruth stood on the other side of the mirror from me. She pressed her palm against the glass. Our hands aligned. The burned man in the bedroom raised the lantern. At the dome door, the handle turned. The telescope slewed back and forth in small nervous movements. Its mirror cover opened. The machine seemed less like an instrument than an eye searching a room. The door handle turned. "Who's there?" I called. A man answered through the steel. "This is my observing time." The lock snapped. He entered wearing the same dark suit shown on the monitor. His face was narrow, his hair neatly parted, his clothes scorched along one side. A smell of kerosene reached me from across the dome. "Where is she?" he asked. I backed toward the control console. "Who?" "My daughter." The imaging monitor lit again. The woman in the farmhouse shook her head urgently. She lifted her paper, turned it over, and revealed one word: open. The dome shutter controls were beside my hand. I pressed open. The wide metal panels separated overhead. Cold starlight entered the dome. The man's burned skin became translucent. Through his chest, I saw the opposite wall. He rushed me. I swung the emergency paddle and commanded the telescope to its maintenance position. 20 tons of steel rotated between us. He passed through the optical tube like smoke and reformed on my side, close enough for his lantern to brush my shirt. The fabric caught fire. I tore it off and fell against the console. The woman on the monitor pointed upward, toward a bright point above the farmhouse roof. I recognized the star pattern around it. Pegasus, my original target. I entered the coordinates again and overrode the software limit. The telescope tilted toward the open sky. Its mirror faced the exact star it had been observing when the first image appeared. The man screamed. Light did not pour from the telescope. The opposite happened. Every reflection in the dome, the monitors, steel rails, polished floor, even the glass over the clock, stretched toward the primary mirror. The man's body pulled with them. He caught the railing beside me. His fingers became long shadows across the metal. On the screen, the farmhouse woman opened the bedroom door. Wind exploded through the dome. Papers spiraled upward. The kerosene lantern broke apart in midair, flame folding into the mirror without heat. The man lost his grip. He vanished into the telescope. The primary mirror cracked from edge to center. Every system shut down. The external drive survived. Its command log contained one additional exposure taken during the moment Abram vanished. Instead of a star, it recorded the upstairs room at the Calder house. Ruth stood alone beside an open window. On the desk, the evidence box was closed. The bedroom door behind her had disappeared, replaced by a blank wall. At the bottom of the frame, a timestamp counted forward from 1967 until it reached the current year. Then the image overexposed to white. I sat in darkness until headlights climbed the access road. Dr. Moritz arrived with the sheriff's deputy and found me beneath the open dome, burned shirt on the floor, fire extinguisher in my hands. She finally told me the truth. Coyote Mesa's first director was Dr. Abram Calder. In 1967, his wife died under suspicious circumstances, and his 20-year-old daughter Ruth planned to leave the family ranch. On the night of the observatory's first successful exposure, the Calder farmhouse burned. Abram claimed Ruth died in the fire, but her body was never identified. Weeks later, he was killed when the telescope moved during maintenance and crushed him against a railing. Since then, observers had occasionally reported a farmhouse in test images. The directors buried those reports to protect the facility's reputation. Dr. Moritz had seen the woman herself as a student. Her encounter happened during a storm in 1998. Ruth showed her the sealed cellar and the number 3047, but Dr. Moritz never called authorities. Her supervisor convinced her that reporting a ghost would destroy her career and the observatory's funding. She deleted the frame, and the activity stopped. "I spent 28 years telling myself it was corrupted data," she said. "Then you described the nightgown." The shame in her voice explained how fear passes from one generation to the next. Nobody has to believe the impossible. They only have to teach the next person to stay silent about it. "Why did you tell me to delete it?" I asked. She looked ashamed. "Because that's what my supervisor told me." The deputy reached the Calder property before sunrise. Beneath the burned foundation, he found a storm cellar sealed with stones. Inside were Ruth Calder's remains, a broken lantern, and a metal strongbox containing her journal. Ruth wrote that her father killed her mother after she discovered he was falsifying research. Ruth planned to carry the evidence to the university. Her last entry ended in the middle of a sentence. The number 3047 was not the county road. It was the catalog number of the variable star Abram observed the night Ruth died, the same star assigned to me by chance 59 years later. The 60-inch mirror could not be repaired. When workers removed it, they found an image burned into the silver coating beneath the crack. It showed Ruth standing outside the farmhouse in daylight. She was older, perhaps 70. Her hair was white. She faced away from the house and toward an open road. I left astronomy after finishing my degree, but not because I stopped believing in it. The universe remained what it had always been, enormous, dark, and full of old light reaching us long after its source was gone. I simply understood that looking is not a harmless act. Sometimes across distance or years or death, something notices when we look back. Story 10. The patient printer produced my hospital bracelet 27 years after I was born. I was working overnight security at St. Vincent Mercy in Pittsburgh while the hospital prepared to demolish its oldest wing. The building had been closed for 6 months. Crews removed the beds, medications, computers, and most of the copper piping. Only emergency lights and a few alarm circuits remained active. My job was to patrol once an hour and keep thieves from stripping whatever was left. The 5th floor had been the neonatal and cardiac intensive care unit. It was a maze of glass rooms, faded murals, and nurses' stations coated in dust. Every sound traveled. A loose vent cover could knock once at one end of the hall and seemed to answer itself from the other. My name is Gabriel Monroe. I was 27, recently divorced, and taking every extra shift I could get. I liked the abandoned wing because nobody asked how I was doing. The hospital had given me a ring of 32 keys and an old floor plan. Most rooms were crossed out in red. Room 518 alone had been circled in blue, with no explanation. When I asked the day supervisor, he said demolition crews used it for storage. My first trip past the room showed nothing inside but a stripped bed frame. Still, the patient call light above its door blinked once as I passed. I pressed reset at the nurse's station. The panel displayed Gardner, Leah for half a second before clearing. I wrote the name in my patrol notebook, assuming it belonged to an old circuit nobody had reprogrammed. At 12:30, I completed my first patrol. Nothing moved except plastic sheeting. At 1:30, I found a light on in room 518. The room was supposed to be empty. Through the glass, I saw a woman lying beneath a white blanket. A heart monitor glowed beside her, tracing a slow green rhythm. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The bed was bare. No monitor. No blanket. No woman. On my radio, the lobby guard asked why I had stopped moving. I told him the motion tracker was lagging and continued my patrol. I did not want to become the new guy who reported imaginary patients. At the nurse's station, a label printer woke with a mechanical buzz. A plastic bracelet slid into the tray. Monroe, Gabriel. Mail. Admit 418. The date was that morning. I photographed it and called building maintenance. The on-call technician insisted the printer was disconnected from the network. I pulled its power cable from the wall. Another bracelet printed. This one read baby boy unknown. The hall intercom clicked. A woman said, "You came back." I left the 5th floor. In the security office, I searched the old incident database. The demolition archive contained reports going back to the 1990s. Room 518 appeared in a file from April 1999, when an electrical fire forced evacuation of the neonatal unit. One patient died, a 22-year-old woman named Leah Gardner. Her newborn son survived and entered foster care after no relatives could be located. The report contained details that made my hands shake. Leah had been admitted at 4:11 a.m. Her son was born 7 minutes later. A nurse described a crescent-shaped birthmark below the infant's left shoulder. I had the same mark. A scanned photograph showed Leah holding the baby before the fire. Smoke damage obscured most of her face, but I recognized the eyes from room 518. The database would not open the transfer record. A warning said the file had been restricted by hospital counsel after a dispute over the evacuation. Someone had added a note in 1999. Mother returned against orders. Security failed to stop her. The sentence blamed her for going back without saying why. My birthday was the day of that fire. I had been adopted from foster care at 3 months old. My parents were honest about that, but the original records were sealed. I had never learned my birth mother's name. At 2:14, the 5th floor fire alarm activated. The panel showed smoke in room 518. I radioed the lobby guard. No answer. His chair was empty when I reached the main desk. The outer door stood open, and cold air moved through the lobby. His flashlight lay on the floor beside a streak of blood. Someone had entered the building. I called 911 and reported a possible assault. Then metal clanged above me, followed by the groan of pipe being dragged across concrete. Copper thieves. They often targeted closed buildings. These had attacked the lobby guard and gone upstairs believing the wing was empty. I took the stairwell to 4 and heard 2 men arguing above me. Cut the red one. That's not water. A saw started. Hospitals use color-coded pipes. Red in that wing marked the old oxygen supply. The tanks had been removed, but sections of line could still contain trapped gas under pressure. Stop cutting, I shouted. The saw went silent. One man appeared at the 5th floor landing. He wore a respirator and carried a length of copper pipe like a club. He swung before I could explain. The pipe struck my shoulder and knocked me against the rail. I used pepper spray. He fell back, cursing, while the second man ran deeper into the ICU. Then the lights failed. The emergency system switched on, painting the halls red. A sharp hiss came from the ceiling. The cut oxygen line was venting. I pulled the fire alarm. Nothing happened. The demolition crew had disabled the audible circuits after repeated false alarms. My radio crackled. The woman's voice said, "He is in the nursery." The thief I sprayed fled down the stairs. I should have followed. Instead, I went after the second man. If a spark reached that leaking line, the entire center hall could ignite. The nursery door had locked automatically when power failed. Through its wired glass window, I saw the thief pulling at it. A fallen ceiling grid pinned one of his legs. His electric saw lay beside him, still spinning down. "Help me," he shouted. The air inside shimmered around a broken oxygen pipe. The thief, whose name I later learned was Sean, had dropped his respirator. His face was gray. He pointed at the saw beside him. "Battery," he gasped. "Get it out." The lithium pack had cracked. Tiny blue sparks snapped from its casing each time water dripped from the ceiling. I could not reach both Sean and the saw from the doorway. "Slide it to me." He kicked once. The saw moved a foot, then caught beneath the fallen grid. The oxygen alarm changed from a steady light to rapid red pulses. Although its speaker had been disconnected, infant cries began coming through the ceiling speakers. Not one baby. Dozens. Room lights turned on across the ward. Behind each glass panel, I saw nurses lifting empty blankets and running toward exits that no longer existed. The fire of 1999 was unfolding around us without heat, laid over the present like a second sheet of film. One nurse stopped at the nursery door. She reached through the vision and pulled the saw free. In the present, it slid across the floor by itself. I removed the battery and threw it into the hall. I tried my master key. The lock would not turn. The clock above the nurse's station read 3:51. My bracelet said I would be admitted at 4:18. The woman appeared in the reflection of the nursery glass. She stood beside me in a hospital gown, younger than I had expected, with tired brown eyes and a burn along one arm. She raised her hand and touched a square panel beside the door. I tore it off. Behind it was a manual release cable. The door opened. I crawled beneath the fallen grid and pulled the thief free. He could not stand. We moved together, his arm over my shoulders, while the oxygen hiss followed us down the hall. At 4:05, smoke rolled from an electrical closet. The thief's saw had thrown sparks into the ceiling before he dropped it. Fire traveled through insulation above us, invisible except for orange light pulsing behind the tiles. The nearest stairwell was blocked by collapse. The next required crossing the old neonatal ward. Every room light came on as we approached. One after another, they formed a path. The fire reached the oxygen. A blue flash ran through the ceiling. Glass walls burst into the corridor. The pressure threw us through the door of room 518. I landed beside the empty bed with blood in my eyes and no feeling in my left arm. The thief lay unconscious near the window. Fire filled the doorway. The woman sat on the bed. She held a newborn wrapped in a striped hospital blanket. "I only had you for 7 minutes," she said. I knew who she was before she said my name. "Leah?" She smiled. "Gabriel." The window behind her overlooked a construction elevator mounted to the outside of the building. Crews had removed its controls, but the platform remained level with the 5th floor. Leah pointed to the glass. I wrapped my jacket around my fist and struck until the pain broke. Cold air rushed in. I dragged the thief onto the platform, climbed after him, and released the emergency brake. The elevator descended too fast. We hit the ground at 4:18. My legs buckled, but the shock absorbers held. Firefighters reached us seconds later. My hospital bracelet was scanned in the emergency department with an admission time of 4:18 a.m. The lobby guard survived. Police arrested both thieves, including the man I carried out. He later wrote me a letter from jail. He said he had a daughter and did not understand why I saved him. For weeks, I did not know how to answer. The hospital investigated the old fire after I asked about Leah Gardner. Archived records showed that she had not died from burns. Staff found her unconscious after returning to the nursery during evacuation. She had gone back because smoke separated her from her baby. Other details changed the story further. The alarm panel had failed that morning because a contractor disabled it during renovation, the same kind of shortcut that almost killed us decades later. Leah alerted 3 rooms before searching for me. 2 nurses credited her with saving 4 infants. The hospital had settled with those families under agreements that kept the failure out of the news. In the public account, Leah became a confused patient who interfered with evacuation. In the private reports, she was the first person to notice the smoke. The infant's temporary bracelet read "Baby Boy Unknown." A nurse added the mother's requested first name by hand before sending him to another hospital. Gabriel. That handwritten name was the first choice Leah ever made for me, and the first piece of my life that had not been selected by a caseworker, court, or sealed file. My adoptive parents helped me unseal the records. Leah had no family willing to claim me, but she left one page in the chart. It said she wanted her son to grow up somewhere safe, and hoped he would become the kind of man who went back for people. The old wing was demolished. I watched from across the street as machines pulled down the 5th floor. For a moment, room 518 stood open to the morning sky. Sunlight passed through it for the first time in decades. I finally answered the thief's letter. I told him I did not save him because he deserved it. I saved him because someone who had every reason to leave once went back for me. That is where the night ends when I remember it now, not with the fire, the fall, or an empty hospital speaking my name. It ends with a young woman sitting beside a window at sunrise, holding her child for 7 minutes, and somehow making those minutes last the rest of his life.